Info Simcoe. My name is Madison Fitzpatrick, and joining me in studio today is Midland Mayor Bill Gordon. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much for being here. It's super exciting to have you in to talk with us and hopefully answer some questions as well further on. But we're 6 months, into the year, and let's just talk about how it's going so far with council and everything that you're doing.
Great. I could summarize it with progress. If I had to pick a word, we have a really good council. The voters in Midland put together a great eclectic team, diverse backgrounds, different ways of thinking, which is, it's as much as it's a challenge, it's also really rewarding. The councillors are coming to the meetings prepared. They've read the reports. They have great discussion. And we haven't experienced the dreaded split voting, when you start to see councils fracture and 5-4 splits kind of thing. Thankfully, I wish this was wood, but thankfully that's my goal, is to try and not let council devolve into fractures like that. And quite frankly, that's one of the ways I rate myself is over this term, have I been able to find the compromise needed to get the consensus? We're not always going to agree wholeheartedly on every issue, but all the big formative issues, I will consider it a personal failure if I can't get consensus from my council on the really important critical stuff.
Mm-hmm. So here on Rogers TV, we do we produce the councils in all municipalities here in Simcoe County. So we've been following along with the councils and all the committees of the whole and things like that. How is the council doing so far in getting used to all the jargon and how council works?
I think they've been doing a great job. I've taken a little more time in the meetings, not only for the folks that follow along watching the stream from home, so they understand how our processes work and why we do things, but it's also for the benefit of our new first-term councillors. There are things that maybe I wish were done when I had my first term, my first year. I had to learn a bit more, drinking from a fire hose is kind of the analogy. So I'm trying to make things as easy on our councillors as possible, make sure they understand our procedural policy, what this means when we do this, what it maybe prevents if we go this way, and spend a little extra time in meetings. And I can probably start to wean off of that as we get into year 2. Everyone has gotten into the swing of it. And actually last night's meeting was a perfect example. I haven't watched it online yet, but it was my first council meeting I've ever missed. Last term I don't think I missed one.
Oh no.
But my daughter was graduating from McMaster for her nursing degree, and that was critical that I was there for that. Watched over 700 nurses graduate.
Wow.
So I did my part for helping the healthcare crisis. I made a nurse. Anyway, long story short is I missed that meeting last night, and it ran flawlessly, and actually ended in record time. So they got all the business done. Deputy Mayor took over my place, ran the meeting. Everybody, I think we were maybe missing another couple of councillors, which starts to happen as we get into the summer seasons. But to me, that was a measure of here we have a team that can work. They don't need me at the helm. They know what they're doing now, and it ran well. Even with our clerk being off, we have our deputy clerk taking over. So everybody's poured themselves into this, learned our processes, and the business of the town is moving forward. It's really quite rewarding to see that in such a short time.
Well, that's good to hear. And you're talking about moving forward, and you were talking about progress before. How has it been working on the goals that you had set at the beginning of the year and council has set? How's it been working on that?
Well, the goals are wonderful. So clearly moving into any election, individual politicians have their own goals, and those resonate with voters and usually translate into votes. And then once you're elected, now you need to find compromises, because there's 8 other peers. We all have our goals, and we need to get together and to perform strategic planning, visioning exercise. Now our council just went through that about a month and a bit ago, and we came up with our strategic plan for the next 2 to 3 years. We didn't want to do one that covered the whole 4-year term. Realistically, we want to do things in sort of 1-year chunks so we can evaluate our success or challenges and setbacks. So we have this new strategic plan in place. So council met for a couple of days, put this together with a facilitator, and I think it was 2 meetings ago we adopted that strategic plan. And it's meant to give guidance to all of the initiatives we bring forward as councillors, either at budget time or through the mid-cycle, through the year, that everything we bring up needs to plug in and align somehow with that constellation of stars that we've all agreed this is where we're trying to get to as a community over in our term, within our purview.
Yeah, so some of the things that you had mentioned before was growth the
Absolutely.
waterfront,
The waterfront,
things like
yeah.
that, safety. So what are if you could just list a few things, like the main goals that the town has for the next few years?
Okay, well again, in a word, growth. So we need to grow. Things that don't grow wither and die. And we've suffered with low growth, no growth for more than a decade. There's been complicating factors and there's no one thing to blame. But we have an opportunity now coming out of the pandemic to get growth started. We were effectively the defibrillator, and we've got the heartbeat going. So our growth department, which is what I've dubbed our planning and building departments, is moving through the backlog of subdivision agreements, things that allow more homes, like townhomes, rental buildings, things that we desperately need, getting these things approved so that shovels can get in the ground and we can start to fill that vacuum, that emptiness where we just don't have places for people to live, either to come to Midland to come and work, or for the existing people to move from. So as people move from a rental house into a new rental apartment, or as they're able to afford it with the cost of living and inflation and all the other stress tests, get into buying a new home. That works when there's a supply of new homes and new places to move into. And
Right.
We've been suffering along with other communities, but I really care primarily about Midland.
Right. So just as our conversation continues, we're going to have you come back on the show.
That's great.
Multiple times, which I'm very excited. And our goal really is for you as mayor to really connect with our audience here at Rogers TV. So what we're going to do is the audience, if you want your questions answered by Midland Mayor Bill Gordon, send them to the email shown on the screen, and we'll have them answered for you. And I think it's really exciting that we're going to be doing this, and hopefully all the questions will be answered by you for our audience.
I'm happy to answer anything that comes in. I'm sure we'll get questions about Midland Bay Landing, next steps, where are we going with that, the community safety, perceptions and realities in the downtown core and throughout the community. What plans do we have in foot for to try and change that? There's really no bad questions, so I invite people to ask them anytime, send them into the show. Happy to talk to them here, or continue to do what they're doing now, which is inundate my inbox and voicemail with calls. And so I welcome that and accept that as part of the job.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Stay tuned for more Info Simcoe.